Blog Talk Radio. You're tuned in to in5d Radio, the next dimension of radio, where we bring you the hottest, in-depth spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric conversations and news, with your hosts Gregg Prescott and Heidi Kole. Get ready for spirit, body, and mind to expand in 3, 2, 1.
Namaste, everyone, and welcome to in5d Radio, coming to you from Sarasota, Florida, every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and 12 a.m. midnight in the UK. I am your host, Gregg Prescott from in5d.com, and for the next 2 hours, we're going to be raising the vibration of the planet, galaxy, and universe. Tonight's show will become an instant classic, as our special guest will be Jordan Maxwell. But first, I'd like to introduce my co-host, coming to you from New York City and author of the Subway Diaries, Heidi Kole. Hello, Heidi.
Hey, Gregg. Hey, everyone. How are you?
I'm doing great. What you got for us?
Well, welcome everyone to in5d, and tonight we have a really, as Gregg mentioned, a really special guest for you, Jordan Maxwell. So we'll keep our news short and let you soak up as much of Jordan as 2 hours will allow. How important is your food to you, your family, and your children? Well, this week the food sustainability game just changed again. Whatever the basis, human depopulation, Agenda 21, and or pure financial domination, the Monsanto Protection Act, part of the H.R. 933 continuing resolution, which was presented this week, allows Monsanto to override U.S. federal courts on the issue of planting experimental genetically engineered crops all across the country. Here's a clip from the documentary Genetic Roulette.
GMO, genetically modified organisms. They take genes from one species and force it into the DNA of other species. And they can mix and match between species that have never normally made it. So they have spider genes that they put into goats in the hopes that they can milk the goat to get spiderweb protein to make bulletproof vests. I'm not making this up. They've taken cow genes and put them into pigs so that the pigs have cowhides. They've taken human genes and put it into corn to make spermicide. And for the food we eat, there's two main categories. The herbicide-tolerant crops, they can spray them with herbicide and not kill them, or the pesticide-producing crops that produce their own toxic insecticide that if a bug bites those plants, it breaks open the stomach and kills them. There's a soil bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT. And if you take that bacteria and gather it up and use it as spray, the BT toxin produced by the bacteria will kill insects. So engineers take the gene that produces the toxin and insert it into corn and cotton and allow the plants to do the killing.
Every single cell within that plant is producing a toxic protein.
BT is designed to break open the stomach of insects and kill them. So when the doctors hear about this, that BT corn was introduced into our diet in the mid-90s, they say this may explain the increase in gastrointestinal problems that they're seeing in their practice. But the EPA says, don't worry about BT toxin. It's completely harmless to human beings and animals because it only affects insects. However, a study that came out in February 2012 showed that the EPA got it wrong. It does break open little pores in human cells, and it might cause the same kind of disruption in our gut as it's causing in the insects that it kills.
If Bacillus thuringiensis is causing an increased propensity for our intestine to become permeable or leaky and for foods to be presented to our bloodstream in a premature fashion, the havoc that it will cause will be across the entire spectrum of disease.
Now, even though those experimental crops have been found to be extremely dangerous and even toxic to humans or to cause runaway crop plague, the U.S. government now has no judicial power to stop them from being planted and harvested, as the bill effectively bars federal courts from being able to halt the sale or planting of GMO or GE crops and seeds, no matter what health consequences from consumption of these products may come to light in the future.
The current FDA policy on GMOs, created in 1992, says that the agency is not aware of any information showing that GMOs are significantly different. Therefore, no safety studies are necessary. It turns out that in 1998, a lawsuit forced 44,000 secret internal memos into the public domain, and they showed a different story.
As I combed through those 44,000 pages of memoranda and other documents, I was shocked because it became clear that the FDA had been lying repeatedly since 1992 because they claimed that there was an overwhelming consensus within the scientific community that these foods are safe. But the overwhelming consensus within their own scientific staff was exactly opposite. These foods could not be presumed safe.
You can find the articles and the full documentary, Genetic Roulette, on in5d.com, because Gregg has posted it there, and it's, in my opinion, worth a look. Gregg, do you have any other stories you'd like to cover?
Nothing right offhand. What I was thinking about doing, we're still waiting for Jordan to call in, so what we can do is open up the lines and talk to people. If you guys have anything that you'd like to talk about until Jordan comes on, feel free to give us a call. The number is 646-716-8890, and we can talk about anything that you want. In case you missed last week's show, we talked about what led to your spiritual awakening. So if you have a story that you might want to share with us until Jordan calls in, then call on in and give us a shout. Once again, that number is 646-716-8890.
I see we have a 267 area code. I don't know, is that, do you want to bring them in and see who's there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Hello?
267. Are you there? Hi. What's your name?
Yeah, I'm actually the guy who called in last week with that question for Jordan, and you suggested that I call back and ask him. So why don't you just put me on hold until Jordan comes on, and then, yeah, you can talk to some other people.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to be bringing on, taking calls until the second hour, so you're going to be holding for a while, but I've got your number written down, and I'll make sure that you're first in the queue. How's that?
All right, thanks a lot. I'll be listening the whole time. I'll be ready.
Okay, very good. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Okay, I've got his number jotted down, so whenever he calls in, he'll have the first question. So last week, actually, what we did last week, we had such a great time. There's so many wonderful callers, and we started going over how many of these 51 spiritual awakening symptoms do you have. I think we made it barely to number 3, Heidi.
I know, and we actually added a few as well, right? Before we got...
Yeah, so number 1 was a change in sleep patterns, which I know a lot of us have been experiencing. Number 2 is the activity at the crown of the head. That's the crown chakra tingling and lighting up. Number 3 was the sudden waves of emotion. And moving on, let's talk about number 4. Old stuff seems to be coming up as described above, and the people with whom you need to work it out with appear in your life. So this is kind of like karma, I guess, is what this one's saying. These people that we're running into, you know, we've had these issues for who knows how long, but all of a sudden, these people are popping back in our lives, and it gives us the opportunity to resolve that issue. Did you ever have anything like that happen, Heidi?
Yes, of course. But oddly, this time around in the recycling of issues, it seems a little less toxic, a little less assaulting. So it feels almost like perhaps they'll never wrap up completely because you just get to higher and higher levels. But they do feel smaller, you know. I think that's normal. But yeah, things are popping up. But on the other hand, with the speed and manifestation, they seem to come and go once you make a decision of where you want them to lay in your life at this point. So they come and go a lot faster.
Well, I'll tell you, it seems like things are manifesting quicker than ever before right now, too. So, you know, whether it's good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, this stuff is coming up in our lives. And, you know, welcome it. If it's something that seems to be, or at least on the face value, seems to be like it's a bad thing, welcome it into your life because that's only going to help you on your spiritual journey. It's an obstacle that you have the opportunity to overcome.
It's so true, and I think that's the difference. Once you make that decision and if you've been through it a few times, you can actually sort of manifest your way out of it, which was a lot more difficult in the past, I found. Once you decide exactly and you visualize how you want and you feel how you want things to go, it actually happens, which is a great responsibility, but really cool at the same time.
Mm-hmm. The next two are kind of tied in together, number 5 and 6. Number 5 is changes in weight, and number 6 is changes in eating habits, strange cravings, and odd food choices. So have you experienced any of that?
Well, I think I wrote to you this week that I'm a big eater normally, like serious eater, and I could not stomach solid food for about 5 days. I wasn't sick. I had tons of energy, and it's still the case. I don't really feel like chewing or digesting anything, which is so weird. So I have this. I remember emailing you. I said I have this fridge full of food, and I'm trying to figure out how to blend it all or juice it so it won't go bad.
Well, I think a lot of people, because of this whole GMO thing that Obama signed into the Monsanto Protection Act, I think a lot of people are starting to wake up. So there will be changes in eating habits globally, at least U.S.-wide, if nothing else. But I mean, already people are, for example, in many European countries, they've already banned GMOs there. So there are changes in eating habits worldwide.
We're far behind. We have big lag time. Gregg, I see, I think, Jordan, 818-514? The 818 number?
Yeah.
Are we here?
All right. Our guest tonight is Jordan Maxwell. Jordan has helped to enlighten millions upon millions of people in the esoteric and occult field since beginning his research in 1959, and I really don't think he gives himself enough credit for the role he's played during this mass awakening. He's made over 600 radio show appearances and has been in numerous television shows and documentaries, and I'd like to mention that he's played an exponential role in my awakening. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jordan Maxwell to in5d Radio. Jordan, your mic is live right now.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, I'm not sure if you heard the introduction or not, but I'd definitely like to welcome you to our show. I'm Gregg. My co-host is Heidi, and thank you for being our guest.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Where are we? Well, we are all students and are learning new things every day. Is there anything new in your research?
Well, actually, there's nothing new under the sun.
Okay.
Same old stuff, a different day. I mean, the more we change, the more we stay the same. Same kind of problems the human race was facing thousands of years ago, we still face today. The only problem is our problems are bigger because of our technology and because of the way we live. Our problems are much bigger. And it's just my opinion, but I think the problems we face are spiritual. They're cosmic in proportions. We don't have to worry about how corrupt the world is. We know that. But we got bigger problems. We got spiritual and cosmic problems. So, we can go on for hours on that subject.
Indeed. Well, what kind of spiritual? What do you think is the biggest spiritual problem that we have?
I would say probably of all the problems we've got on the earth, and it'll take an hour or two to go down the line and name off all the problems facing the human race. But I think the biggest of all is education and spiritual knowledge, but especially education. I see that as the basis for all the problems on the earth. Everything is how enlightened we really are, how backwards and ignorant, ill-informed, and downright stupid. And that's why we're in the problems we're in. That's why we're having trouble around the world. We're just not very educated. We're not very smart. We think we're smart because a few of us are brilliant in science and creating computers and stuff like that. So we think that because some people are creating telephones and lasers and all that and putting men on the moon and all that, that we as a civilization on the earth are pretty smart. But actually we are very, very backwards. We're very bad And, by their fruits you shall know them. So what is the fruitage of civilization on the earth? Well, look around. Look at the big cities. Look at the crime. Look at the drug use and the arms manufacturers and the corruption of government, corruption of your air, and the food and commerce and education and the military. Just look at all of the fantastic criminal stuff going on the earth today. So the more we change, the more we stay the same. We just got bigger spiritual problems now because we don't know what's going on. Today with all of the technology that's available, we could know anything and research anything and study anything. All you got to do is just turn on the computer and go to the web and look up a subject. And but today, with all the technology for learning and the potential for learning, the world is more stupid than it was when I was a kid, more ignorant. I can't believe how profoundly stupid we were. Some of the most brilliant people in the world, even on our mundane world, were back in the 1700s and 1800s. That's when the great minds and scientists and philosophers and teachers were coming into the world to research subjects, to teach and to educate. America was founded on great principles, but today, the whole human race has been arrested. We're operating under arrested development. Virtually nobody in our country knows what's going on. Nobody really cares, really. And so we just love crawling on our knees to our emperors, and we've always been a slave race. We've always acted like slaves, and so our masters who own us treat us like slaves because it's to be expected. If you act like a fool, people are going to teach you. That people are going to treat you like a fool. If you act like a brilliant, intellectually superior scientist or a great statesman, people will show you that kind of respect and treat you that way. But because the American people are being treated like a bunch of animals, and it's because they act like a bunch of animals. They think like a bunch of animals. Well, then they're going to be treated like a bunch of animals. If America was filled with highly intelligent, extremely moral, intellectually astute, brilliant people who read and were dedicated to truth and justice and the American way and intellectual achievement, shoot, the kind of government we've had in the past 100 years wouldn't fly. You couldn't sell this to a really highly intelligent people. But to Americans, you sell them anything. They'll buy anything, throw it out there and put it on TV and tell everybody how wonderful it's going to be, and people will love it. They'll vote for it and go down and buy it. And so we get the government we deserve.
Well, I definitely agree that there is a dumbing down of society, but the way I also see it, though, is that everything that appears to be negative that's happening. For example, when Obama passed the Monsanto Protection Act, it brought about a lot of awareness, and now people are, for example, all these states are starting to come up with these food labeling systems. So in the end, it seems like this is kind of turning around. It's kind of heading in our direction.
Well, I'd like to think so anyway. But I've always said, and it's just me, just my opinion, but I've always said that the light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming, because it's because every now and then we make a few little strides forward, and then for the next 20 years we'll go backwards again. And then we make a few little strides forward, and then next 20 years we'll go backwards again. So,
Jordan, do you have any suggestions other than turning off the television and stop drinking fluorinated water as to what people can do to stop the train from smashing?
Well, you're right. Turning off the TV and stop consuming alcohol and fluorides and all the other poisons that are purposely designed and put into our food supply and into our water. You're right. That's exactly what's happening. But I don't know. It's a very big story, and I've said so many times I don't think people really want to hear the truth anymore. There's a story in the Bible in the New Testament, story of Jesus, where Pontius Pilate brings it's a metaphor, symbolic story, but it's very powerful. Pontius Pilate brings Jesus out before the city and then brings another prisoner out, Barabbas. And Barabbas, we're told, was a well-known murderer, liar, scumbag, criminal. And so Pontius Pilate in the story, in the New Testament, brings the two of them out. They're both prisoners. And he says to the town, the people of the town, here, according to your custom, I can release each year one prisoner. And so today I'm going to release one prisoner according to your custom. Which one do you want, Barabbas or Jesus? And it says with one voice, the entire town with one voice said, give us Barabbas. Well, that's a metaphor, a symbolic story, like Aesop's fable. It's a symbolic story that tells you something very, very important and very powerful truth. And that is when the people of a town or the people of a state or the people of a country are brought face to face with the reality. Here is the dark side, the evil, the smutty, the filthy, the degenerate, the criminal side. And here is Jesus, who is said to be the truth and the light. So which one do you want? Do you want the truth and the light, or do you want the criminal? Well, with one voice, the earth says, give us Barabbas. It's a symbolic story saying that when the people of the world are faced with the choice of the truth and the light, or the evil and the darkness, then like Jack Nicholson said in the movie, you can't handle the truth. What do you want, the truth? Yeah, you can't handle the truth. You want the truth. The real truth is that you are not able to handle what's going on the world today, and that so that's where we are. So,
well, I'm glad you brought up religion. Well, first, I'd like to give my condolences ahead of time. But you had a friend that passed away who had a PhD in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he was convinced that the Christianity scam was a crock of bull. He ended up becoming an alcoholic after finding out the truth to organized religion. And you interviewed him for nearly 5 hours. So can you give us a couple of examples of what was really in the Dead Sea Scrolls that the Church and Israel does not want us to know? And do you plan on releasing that interview?
You know what? I think I should. His name was Dr. Alan Snow, S-N-O-W, Alan Snow. He had a PhD in the Dead Sea Scrolls, incidentally. He got it from Claremont School of Theology over in Claremont, California. He was very close friends with the number 3 man on the Dead Sea Scrolls Commission. Can't remember his name now. He's a professor in Long Beach who came back from Israel to live in Long Beach and become a professor there. But I'll think of his name in a minute. But anyway, Dr. Alan Snow was a very, very close friend with him, and they were on the phone and meeting all the time. Well, this man was that I'm talking about, that was a friend of Alan Snow, was number 3 man on the Dead Sea Scrolls Commission, appointed by Israel, America, and England. And that Dead Sea Scrolls story is as astounding. They looked all over the world when the Dead Sea Scrolls were first discovered. They looked all over the world for the best of the Hebrew scholars that were on the earth at that time, and it's a long story. But to cut it short, they found the best of the best, and it was a Protestant minister named Strugal. I think it's S-T-R-U-G-A-L or G-A-L-L, Strugal. And Dr. Strugal was a Protestant minister, but he was considered by England, by America, and by Israel to be the best scholar on the planet, period, in the Hebrew language, which is interesting, as a Protestant clergyman would be the best of the best. But so he was picked, and then he had to pick his second, like a president picks his vice president. And so he picked the next one he thought was the best in the world, and that was John Allegro. And John Allegro was an incredible mind in languages, in the Hebrew language and history. So he was number two. Then the two of them picked a third, which they had to do, and that was the professor that is now down in Long Beach. And so Alan Snow became very close friends because his PhD was in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and his whole work that got him the PhD was in the astrology that's hidden in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I used to sit and listen to him. I'd go down to Balboa Island where he lived, and it was a beautiful place right on the ocean, and what an incredible mind he had, Dr. Alan Snow. He was fascinating, funny, generous, and incredibly generous, and extraordinarily well-read in religion and theology. And so he started his own church, and I became a member. I became a minister in his church. It was the only time I've been ordained in my life, but it was the only time I really appreciated being a member of something that I really enjoyed. That was Dr. Alan Snow's church. But that didn't go anywhere. And so when I met him, he was already pretty much out of religion altogether. But I would sit with him for hours with my friend Tim Leadham, who lived right couple of doors down from him. And Tim was my editor, and the editor for the book Your Church Doesn't Want You to Read. And so Tim and I used to hang out at Dr. Allen's house and sit out on his pier at night and talk about theology, religion, and God. And here's a PhD with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I mean, we were just amazing, the stuff he was telling us that was going on in Israel and going on behind the scenes between governments wanting to keep everything that was being found in the Dead Sea Scrolls quiet. Israel was very, very adamant about that. Nothing that's going on, and nothing you're finding in. They basically said to the three on the triumvirate, they said, anything you find, you keep your mouth shut. You report to your authorities, period. And if you're ever asked to do an interview by anybody, you had better never be heard or seen in an article writing about the Dead Sea Scrolls, period. You're being financed to do one thing, that's study what's in those Dead Sea Scrolls and tell us, Israel, England, and America, what is in these ancient scrolls. It's not important for the people to know. They've never been important for the people to know anything. This kind of information is on a need-to-know basis, and the poor people and the working-class people of the world, they don't need to know. You're working for Israel. You're working for England, the British Crown. You're working for America. You're working for the powers that be. And this information is not for the regular people. So a lot was kept, they knew a lot. I mean, Dr. Snow says, you'd be surprised what we found out about the Jewish religion. You would be shocked if you knew what we found out even early on in our research into the Dead Sea Scrolls and putting the pieces together. So it was it was quite a story.
Can you give us a couple of examples?
Well, he said that what finally happened, because he was saying that most of the Old Testament was astrology. It was all astrological configurations, astrological terms and words that were used in ancient astrology that we read those words today and they sound holy. But in point of fact, if you go back to when these the Dead Sea Scrolls were written and the Old Testament, you will find that a lot of the words and terms and symbols and things which are being said are related to astrological societies and people, that would have been alive way back then in the ancient world. we use the same terms and words today, and they don't mean the same thing. So he said, so most of what we call the Old Testament is astrology, period. And what we call the New Testament, he said, is a remedy in commerce. That's interesting. A remedy in commerce and astro-theology. And he began to break down some of the stories about Jesus and what that really meant and where it really came from. And so, but the bottom line is that the Bible was in both Old and New Testament was basically astrological. Well, you ask any 6-year-old child, Christian child, where is God? And they will point straight up, out there in heaven. Well, do you believe in angels? If you believe in angels, yes. Well, where do angels come from? And even a kid will point out there. They come from out there in space. Mm-hmm. And so that's where God is. He's out there. Well, I hate to tell you this, but anything that's out there, if God wasn't born in Cleveland, he's out there, right? And the angels aren't from Florida; they're from out there. Well, then that means God and the angels, or whoever this divine presence is, or whatever is out there, it's out there. It's not here. Out there is extraterrestrial. Mm-hmm. Here it would be terrestrial on the earth, but no, if it's out there, it's extraterrestrial. So therefore, we can conclude that if there are angels, which I personally believe there are, if there are spirits, which I personally believe there is, then they have not come from here, they've come from out there, which means they are extraterrestrial in origin, and that opens up a whole new can of worms, because what are you talking about? Spirits are entities in another dimension that have power over you, and you can't see them. You can't do anything to hurt them. They can hurt you because they can see you and deal with you because they're interdimensional. They're extraterrestrial from here, from out there. So they have come here. Well, obviously they've come here. They're smarter than you because you didn't go out there. They came here. You didn't find them with all of your dishes and all of your science and all of your technology. You tell us that humans are told, well, we're just looking out there, we can't find nothing. You full of crap. There's all kinds of stuff out there you know about. You're not telling the people. And so they tell us, well, we can't find anything. We're just looking. We're just hoping one day to see something important. Well, you don't know what's out there. Well, somebody knows we're here because they're here, and they're not of this. They're not of your world. They're extraterrestrial. They are not of your dimension. You can't see them, and they are obviously a hell of a lot smarter than you are, because they found you in the universe. They found you in the universe. You didn't find them. Mm-hmm. And incidentally, we have found extraterrestrial life. We know all about it. They're here. We've known that for a long time. The people in the mountain know. The regular guy on the street is not, he doesn't spend his life 53 years studying this stuff. Most of the people, I've spent 53 years of my life researching and studying the world of the occult, while most people hearing me haven't spent 53 minutes. And therefore, I look like a fool because I'm saying stuff that they've never heard. And it sounds crazy. So
not at all.
But I've just been looking at it for a long time, and I always try to, in any radio show or lecture I do, I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I never have been. I don't think there really is too many authorities on the earth. There are people who are pompous and arrogant who will claim themselves to be an authority until you really find somebody who is highly intelligent, question them in public, and then you find out how much they don't know. And so I know how much I don't know. I'm well aware of how much I don't know. And it's frightening how stupid I am. When in relation to the universe, like that one astronomer said, and I love the quote, he said, the universe out there is not only stranger than you imagine, it's stranger than you can imagine. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's God. That's the universe. That's where the real stuff is. When you start toying with the universe, with life, and with life out there in space, and what's really been going on for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years on this earth that you are not privy to know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
And,
let me ask you this. Did your new knowledge about the Dead Sea Scrolls change your opinion on whether Jesus was a real person or not?
No, not really. Because I had already formed my opinion based on listening to scholars, Jesuit scholars, teachers, talking with rabbis and rabbinical authorities for many, many years. I used to be a very close friend of a very famous rabbi who today is on the Knesset in Israel. He's one of the leading rabbis in Israel, but what an incredibly wonderful man he was. I don't even know if he's still alive, but I'm not going to use his name because he's very well known. Mm-hmm. But he was a dear friend of mine, and I used to talk with him all the time. And he was a very powerful rabbi when he was here in America, highly respected. And we used to talk about theology and religion for hours, and I learned so much from him as 20 years old and 21 years old. And it's just amazing how much people don't know about religion.
Jordan,
period.
This is Heidi. I wondered what your opinions are on the 100 monkey syndrome. If I keep seeing more and more people waking up, not to the extent of the knowledge but more and more and faster. Do you think at some point, I know there's the no one can intervene. Yeah, nothing extraterrestrial could intervene, but I kind of have this sense that if humanity gets to a certain tipping point, there would be even greater assistance perhaps offered to us so that the train might be averted because, of course, it has to come from inside out, meaning us. Mm-hmm. But at that 100 monkey place, perhaps the tipping point, as you said, that assistance that we've not yet experienced would occur and the train would go its merry way and we would experience a different reality. And perhaps I'm just hopeful, but it seems that would be logical. Then it wouldn't be anyone else's choice, but our choice, and then that we'd have assistance. What would you say to that?
Well, it's very good analysis and a very good question. You're asking an old man to give you a subjective opinion, and old men are always well known to be curmudgeons and pessimists, and so I could be wrong. My God, I've been wrong on so many things in my life. I could be wrong, but you're asking me for a subjective opinion. And so I'm just looking at the question from the standpoint of, well, look at the history of the human race for at least the past 7,000 years that we have knowledge of. And I feel that, yes, it does seem like there's a lot of people awakening right now around the world, and that's true. But it's as if in the very early morning, people start waking up in the morning naturally in a prison. And so everyone's waking up for the morning, for the day, and they're all waking up. But you might as well stay in bed because you're in prison. So there's no hurry for you to get up because you're not going anywhere. And so I feel that the people who are waking up today, I'm always happy to see people finally getting the message to start thinking for yourself. But I believe that I look at the human race, all of us on the earth. I kind of view it this way. I look at the human race as the animals out on the Serengeti plains of Africa, and I've said that before. I think that the human family on the earth is like the animals out on the plains of Africa, when there's just thousands and thousands of animals in large incredibly large herds. And they're out there doing what they normally do, which is nothing. They're just out there eating and reproducing and doing what they do and enjoying life and don't even know they're alive. There's just so many of them, and they are here because they were born. They didn't come into the world intellectually superior. They came in because they were born. So they're here. And then they reproduce, and they got more here. And then they reproduce, and got even more here. So now you got thousands and thousands of animals out on the Serengeti plains of Africa, but they're all disorganized. Nobody knows what they're doing, and everybody's just minding their own business, like God. And they all enjoy each other's company, and they commiserate together. But the lions are organized. There's only a couple of them. There's only about 6 or 8 or 10 lions. And there's thousands of these animals in herds, but the lions are well organized. They're highly intelligent, and they are murderous. They're crawling in the grass low. They know what the name of the tune is. They know what the plan is, and they're working together. And just a handful of lions can upset and cause chaos in the whole world of animals on the plains. And so that's why I see the world. I see the lions are creeping up on us very quietly, very stealthily. We are ignorant. We're watching television and Big Top Pee-wee and Bugs Bunny and drinking our beer and watching the parties and wondering the big thing is, are the Dodgers going to be playing and all that, while the masters who own the earth and who run the earth are quietly meeting in secret places around the world in sheer luxury with their boyfriends and their girlfriends and their cigars and they're meeting in lavish hotels, and quietly, unobtrusively, they are planning what they're going to do to us. And as long as we have enough liquor stores on every corner and the baseball and entertainment and television to keep you occupied, then we're not going to be any problem to them. And God help us when a decision is made by them to rape a country or destroy a people or something. There's nothing we're going to do. You know, once something happens to some little country and they rape and kill 100,000 people, the guys did a couple of weeks ago. They figured out what they wanted to do, so they decided to wipe out some country. And what happens to the rest of the animals out in the plains? We all run. There's chaos everywhere. Everyone's scared to death and running. Nobody knows what's going on. It's some terrible thing, and then it quiets down. So I think that we as humans are powerless. Collectively speaking, I believe we're powerless. We don't have the power to actually protect ourselves from predators. We don't have the power to protect ourselves from tyranny. And the reason we are powerless is because knowledge is power. And collectively, I don't care how many people are waking up, they don't know what's going on. They don't understand the words, the terms, the symbols. You have to study something like this for many years. I was blessed, only not because I'm privileged. It's just something that I grew up with as a child, pattern recognition. I always saw patterns in things, and that's why I understood and really liked the movie Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, because I understood the idea of being able to look at something while everybody else is seeing it, but I see something other people don't see. I see a pattern there. I see the same symbols used by this group, by that group, or by this group, and I know where the symbol came from originally. And I know how it was financed and how these organizations and secret societies work and how they infiltrate into different races and colors and creeds and quietly and very stealthily subvert nations and peoples and organizations. And, we see that all the time. We hear it on the news every night. The mafia worked its way into the General Electric, and there was a whole bunch of criminals inside of Las Vegas. And Las Vegas, everybody was happy and enjoying their life and having fun and on their vacation, never realizing for a moment that it was mafia money who built Las Vegas, as mafia and La Cosa Nostra operation running Las Vegas. And the only reason the mob is not as important there now as it used to be, because they founded Las Vegas, is because the corporations, as Michael Corleone told his girlfriend in the Godfather 1 movie, he told her 2 or 3 times in Godfather 1, he said to his girlfriend, Kate, one day we're going to be perfectly legit. Give me 5 years. Next 5 years we're going to be totally legit. No more criminality, no more mafia killings, all that. Why? Well, it was true. The mafia is totally legit. Because they used to be, the drive-by shootings and the old gangster stuff with Al Capone and all that stuff. That doesn't fly today. People, that's bad for business. My God, if you shoot somebody in Las Vegas, a mafia starts killing somebody in Las Vegas, nobody's going to go to Vegas. Now you've really cut your nose off to spite your face. You can't have that kind of thing going on with women and children and families are coming there to bring you money. So what's wrong with you? You have to make it pretty like Miami and all kinds of beautiful homes and hotels and Disneyland and make it a wonderful place for children and people to come. Even though you own it and you control it, but keep your killing and your raping and murdering, someplace out in the Midwest. Don't do it in Disneyland, for God's sake. And so that's the way it works. That the great entertainment centers of the world and the great beautiful places of the world, they're owned by the mob. They're owned by secret societies and fraternal orders. That's why they get the money to build these places. So,
speaking of secret societies and fraternal orders, for those who follow numerology, Jesuit Pope Francis has a ton of 13s associated with him. What are your initial impressions of Pope Francis, and what does the number 13 mean in reference to the new Pope?
Well, that information just makes me feel warm all over this to know it. Yeah, it just makes me feel fuzzy and wonderful to know that he's got 13s. I don't know what it means, but 13's an unlucky number, I guess.
Okay.
13 is actually a number of perfect government in the new Christian system. Now, in the old Jewish system of the Old Testament, 12 was perfect government. That's 12 represented the perfect number, the perfect governmental number. Why? Because there were 12 tribes of Israel. There were 12 brothers of Joseph. There were the 12 great prophets of the Bible. Look in the back of the Bible and look up in the index how many 12s are used in the Old Testament. My God, there's pages of 12 this, 12 that. Why? Because why was in Hebrew the number 12 so important? It was also borrowed in the New Testament, of course, with Jesus and his 12 apostles. But the 12 is a number of perfect government under the Hebrew system because it represented the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 months of the year. And so the 12 signs of the zodiac are the 12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel. And all you got to do is just begin to look at the pattern recognition. And then you see in the New Testament, Jesus is referred to as God's Son, the light of the world. Well, of course the sun is the light of the world. What else lights the world if it's not the sun? And therefore, the sun does not belong to the Africans or Chinese or Americans, even though they think they own the universe. The sun don't belong to us. So who does it belong to then? Well, it's out in heaven. I know it's in heaven, but who does it belong to? Well, it obviously belongs to God, so it's God's Son, and he's up in heaven. That's right. So when you die, you're not going to go to heaven with God's Son. We're talking S-U-N, eternal life. God's Son, the light of the world. S-U-N. That's why when you have a boy, you get married, you have an offspring of a male offspring, he's called your son. S-O-N. Why? Because in German, and English is a Germanic language, English is referred to as Low German. It's a Germanic language, and if you go to the German and look up the word for that orb that comes up in the morning that lights the world, in German it's spelled S-O-N. N-E. Mm-hmm. And so S-O-N is that thing that comes up in the morning that lights the world. And so, we change it around and make it S-U-N, and the S-U-N is in theology the S-O-N of God. Of course, the Son in German is S-O-N, and it belongs to God, so it's God's Son, the light of the world. And he has 12 helpers. That's right, the 12 signs of the zodiac, which dominate the 12 months of the year. And he is your risen Savior. Of course he's your risen Savior. It comes up every morning at 5:30. If you don't think it's a Savior, wait that the damn thing don't come up. In 3 weeks we're frozen. 3 weeks we're dead. So sure. You better understand God's Son is the light of the world, and he's your risen Savior. And the ancient Egyptians said that the sun was pure energy. I think that's brilliant. They knew it was just pure energy. It was burning energy. And the ancient concept was that if the sun was to keep the energy and not distribute it throughout the universe, that the sun could last forever, because energy, if it's a powerhouse of energy, it could continue to live. Energy is life. That's why when you run out of energy, you say things like, well, I'm just dead. I'm dead, tired, I'm dead. And sometimes you almost are dead. You just plop and have no energy. So when a battery runs out of energy, we call it a dead battery. Well, so when the ancients said that the sun was pure energy, which means it's pure life, but they said that if it kept its energy, stingily kept its energy, it would last forever. Of course, you wouldn't be here, but it would last forever. But because the sun is giving energy to the solar system, it causes life to grow, gives us warmth and protection and light, and causes us to be alive, and gives us energy to live, and gives the earth energy to grow. And so God's Son gave his life so that we might live. Yeah, that's right, because if the energy from the sun didn't come here, we'd be dead. We wouldn't even be here. Mm-hmm. So God's Son is giving his life so that you might live. And so all of these stories in the ancient world were then put into some sort of an Aesop's fables, into some kind of a story, and it becomes known as the Bible. And the Bible is referred to as the greatest story ever told. Of course it's the greatest story ever told. It's not the greatest collection of historical facts ever assembled. It's the greatest story ever told. Mm-hmm. It's a story. But it is not to be minimized. The story it's telling is profound in implications. When you begin to really understand for the first time, and have you ever heard me discuss the word understanding?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, if you have a 2-story building and you're going to put a lot of heavy weight on the second floor, I'll give it to your audience.
Okay, yeah, please.
If you've got a 2-story building and you're going to put a lot of heavy weight on the second floor, like printing presses or cars or whatever, before you do that, it would be smart to go downstairs, stand on a ladder with a building inspector, go up through the ceiling tiles on the first floor, and look at the foundation. Look at the timber or the metal that was put there as a foundation for the second floor. Before you go building on it, see if it's going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you're standing underneath of that what you're going to build on. You're standing under the foundation. And so that's why we get understanding, because you're standing under what you're going to build on, to get understanding. So therefore, I'm saying to understand what I'm talking about, you have to go back to 7,000 years at least and begin to understand the ancient history of the peoples that lived in the world then, and what they believed and what they wrote and how they saw the world. and then watch the way the earth and the human race has developed, mutated, and evolved down till today. And it's very simple. There is no such a thing as an exclusive idea, an exclusive religion. Nothing is exclusive. Everything came from something. I mean, I'm a researcher. I'm not a searcher. I'm a researcher, meaning I do it again. So that's the same thing that's happened on the earth. We're just redoing the same things we did. People are people. Women are women today, like they have always been women for at least 7,000 years we know of. Man has learned a lot about women. It's in a book and it has no pages in it. Because we don't understand women, and women don't understand men, and neither one of us understand God. So if we start going back into ancient history and begin to look at what the ancient peoples taught, what the Sumerians and the Proto-Sumerians, and what the Hittites and the Babylonians and the Akkadians and the people of the Ugaritic area and what we call Palestine, what were their beliefs and how did they live, and what kind of families did they have, and what did they, how did they live, and watch the way history unfolds, then it makes sense where our churches come from, and our synagogues, and our mosque, and our Allahs, and Yahweh, and Jesus, and Jehovah, and it makes sense because I see where it all came from. It can be traced back into history. But what's really interesting is when you trace it all back into history and find out what it really meant to start with. That's when it really gets heady and a trip.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you hear people talk about Jesus as Jesus Christ, they have no idea what the word Jesus means and where it came from. And they have no idea whatsoever what the word Christ means. So when you start breaking down Christ and anointed, and words that are used in theology and religion today, and the names of God like Allah and Yahweh and Jehovah and Jesus, never ever suspecting where any of this comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Never suspecting for a moment what it all really means and where it's all come from. But like the Scripture says in the New Testament, it has Jesus saying, which is a metaphor, it's a symbolic story. But the New Testament has Jesus saying, many will look with their eyes, but not see. And they will listen with their ears, but not hear. And with their heart, they not get the sense of it. And so the more we change, the more we stay the same. We're just as ignorant, ill-informed, unread, blasphemous, and anyone who might have a piece of brain and actually start to research and find out where things came from and start talking, immediately those people will be crucified. Well, I mean, that's what the Bible has Jesus saying. Again, symbolically, Jesus says, what they have, the slave is no greater than the master. What they have done to me, they will do to you. So if you are looking for the truth and the light, then just remember what the truth and the light got in the New Testament. Nailed to a stake, spit on, and died on a cross. Well, it's a symbolic story, but it's true. If you are interested in intellectual, spiritual intelligence and wisdom and knowledge, then you had better keep it quiet. You better keep your mouth shut and do the research at home, and don't let anybody in your family know what you're doing. Because if you're pursuing wisdom and knowledge, believe me, you will eventually lose your family, you will lose everything, you will lose your business, and you'll lose your friend. That much you can guarantee on. And you will lose everything. So just be aware that if you're looking for wisdom and knowledge and understanding, you better keep your mouth shut. Because today in America, you might be a terrorist. You might be working for the Al-Qaeda because you use you use big words, and you read books, and walk around with a book in your hand. And sometimes people see you reading and thinking and questioning things. So that's typical of an Al-Qaeda terrorist. So I mean, the authorities will have to watch you because you're thinking too much. You use those big words, and talk crazy. You talk crazy talk, And so basically what living in America is today, and I'll just give you my opinion, but living in America today is like you being an ordinary, everyday, intelligent person deciding for the moment just to go, just for an interest for a day's visit, drive to an insane asylum and to a mental hospital and go visit. Take a visit to a mental hospital and just see what's going on there. And so as you're roaming around the halls in the mental institution, you see all the inmates, and each one of them are there because they lost their minds. And they're always yelling and ranting and raving and cursing each other. And everywhere you go, you see them, and they're all angry and mad, and they're all individual mental cases, and they don't get along. However, having said that, it's interesting that they all do somehow or another live together. For some way or somehow, they actually all do still, live there together, knowing that they hate each other and that they've got enemies and all that. But they do live together, and so they're all used to each other. The problem is they're not used to you. You are really strange. You don't even belong there. You don't even dress like them. They've never seen you before. You talk all that silly talk. You act different. You talk different. And there's something wrong with you because you don't fit into our civilization here. You don't fit. There's something wrong with you. We need to call the authorities, and maybe you could be an Al-Qaeda agent or a communist or something because you don't act like us. You don't look like us. Hell, you don't even dress like us. And they don't realize, no, the reason why is because I'm intelligent and the rest of you are in a mental institution, for God's sake. So once you understand how the world works, you need to keep quiet if you know something intelligent, because believe me, you will end up in jail or lose your family. So that when I hear people say, well, people are waking up. Yeah, they're waking up to find out they're in a prison. You needed to wake up as far back as 1870. Yeah. You need to wake up as far back as when the American continent was, when America was founded.
It's funny. It reminds me of a statement I heard once. It said, "The insane appear to be sane in an insane society," and it's so true. And that's pretty much the metaphor of what you were saying about the inmates.
That's exactly right. That's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, in a Project Camelot interview in 2011, you said that you know who the Antichrist is, but you added that people aren't ready to know. On the in5d YouTube channel, I have a video of an interview that you did with Truth Frequency Radio called Vatican Secrets Exposed, and the video has been seen over 700,000 times. Our in5d website gets over 500,000 visitors every month, and I'm sure we're all ready to find out this information. So, Jordan, who or what is the Antichrist?
I have never said that. I mean, I've never said who the Antichrist is, have I?
Yeah, you said it wasn't a person. You said it was. You knew who it was in that interview with Carrie Cassidy.
Yeah, but I have not
No.
specifically said who I think it is, have I?
No, you haven't.
Okay, thank God, because I should have, and that's a typical example of the imperfectness of the humans. I misspoke myself. I should not have said I know who it is. I should have said more correctly, and I stand corrected on that. I should have said I have a theory in my mind who it is.
Okay.
I can't tell. I don't know for sure. I mean, nobody knows for sure. I don't even know if people understand what Antichrist means. Because anti does not mean to be against. Mm-hmm. In our English language, the word anti means to be against something, but that's not what it is in Greek. And that's not what it is in the ancient world. In the ancient world, anti does not mean that. It doesn't mean to be against somebody. Anti in the ancient world, in the biblical term anti, does not mean to be against Christ. It means to be in the place of Christ. So if you were in the ancient world, I would say, I would be anti. I'd be the anti-boss in your company. It doesn't mean I'm against you. It means I want to be the boss. Mm-hmm. So anti in the biblical sense means to be in the place of. But then as it came down through the Middle Ages and has transformed like everything else has, all the words have changed. Today, when you say anti-Christ, it means to be against Christ. No, it doesn't. It means to be in the place of Christ. So somebody wants to be Christ, and they're not Christ, but they want to be Christ. They want to be the Savior. They want to be God. And not let the real God rule, but they want to be God. So I would suggest that, who is it on the earth that says he represents God? And he wants everyone to see him as God. And wants the whole world and all the nations of the world to come over here and you kiss my ring and you bow down to me and you kiss my ring and remember I am God. Well, that would be someone who wants to be in the place of God, because anybody with 500 brain cells knows this guy is not God, but he acts like God, and he wants you to think he's God. And, of course, he does a good job of it, so all the leaders of the world go and bow down and kiss his ring and bow down before him and bend their knee to a foreign dignitary and say that he is God and kiss his ring. So I'm not saying now that I know who Antichrist is, but I'm saying that who fits the bill if anti means in the place of. Well, that would be the Vatican and the Holy Father to start with. I mean, that would be a good place to start, because Caesar has always saw himself, Caesar of Rome always saw himself as God, until, of course, the Senate, who was his buddies, they put a knife in his throat. They had enough of him, too. Even the Senate of Rome had enough of Caesar. So they killed him on the Senate House steps. And so today, the American government, the United States federal government, is a Vatican establishment. It's run by the Vatican. Our United States government is a corporation, and its home office in England, and Britain is under the Vatican. So actually all roads lead to Rome. Everything goes back to Rome. Our very Capitol building in Washington, D.C. was modeled according to the newspapers and magazines over the years about the Capitol building. Everyone has said that the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. was modeled exactly off of the Vatican Dome in Italy. So the Vatican Dome was the model for the United States Capitol Dome. As a matter of fact, the word domus is important in this regard. And so where did Caesar and the ancient Roman Empire, where was Caesar's seat of power? Where did he actually officiate over the empire and the ancient world? Well, it was in Rome, yes, but where in Rome? Well, Rome is called the City of Seven Hills. And one of the hills was where the government of the Roman Empire was established. It was called Capitoline Hill. Look it up in a dictionary. Capitoline Hill was the seat of power for the Roman Empire. Therefore, Caesar ruled from Capitol Hill. And in the old reference books and all the old history books, it was said that Caesar would go up on the hill every morning and to officiate over the Roman Senate. Well, for God's sake, that's what we got. We told, today the president was up on the hill and talking with the Senate. That's Rome. That's Vatican. That's Jesuit. That's Rome. It's not American. That's Rome. And so today, our whole system, our entire Western civilization is based on three legs. There are three different parts to our Western world system. Our philosophies in the Western world today, all of our philosophies, basically come from the Greeks. While our laws, the laws that govern the Western world, are Jewish. I mean, that's a fact. Anybody that studies law knows that. I mean, that's why on the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., what is the most prominent statue in front of the Department of Justice if it isn't Moses holding the Ten Commandments. So our laws are based, all our laws, maritime admiralty, commercial law, civil law, all of our laws are based on the Jewish law. So if you don't understand Jewish law, you don't understand Western civilization's laws. But our philosophies, our ideas of religion and theology and concepts and belief systems in philosophy are based on the Greeks. But our actual governmental system, the way we actually govern the world in the Western world, is based on Rome. Might makes right. The legions, the military. They're not asking you anything. Caesar didn't ask anybody anything. He made a decree, and whatever he said, that's God speaking. And you don't think so? Mess with him. And so it's death immediately, off with your head. And so that's what happened in Europe. After the Roman Empire in the 5th century began to decline and finally fell in the 5th century about, that's when the Vatican came into being. Why? Because the financial and political minds and the powers behind Caesar merely represented a power group which nobody has ever seemed to wonder about. I did, because I know behind America the Rockefellers and the J.P. Morgans and the Jacob Schiffs and all these international bankers who are the guys who put America together. And I know behind England are the Rothschilds and the Warburgs and all these other international bankers who are the real bosses behind the Queen and behind the Prime Minister. There's the money powers. They are the power behind the government. Well, I often wonder, well, who was actually financing and the boss of all bosses in ancient Rome? Because Caesar appeared to be God. No, Caesar wasn't God. Even the senators killed him because they realized this guy is off his rocker. He thinks he's God, so we're going to have to kill him ourselves.
Well, he was the first original JC, right?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Jesus Christ. And he was martyred by his enemies and put to death by his enemies. So Jiminy Cricket, or JC, yeah, that's what Jiminy Cricket was, JC. And because he was on your shoulder on the right-hand side, leading you and telling you what to do is right and good, while the devil's on the left side. And, left in Latin is sinister, so anything, in your heart is on the left side of your body. So therefore it was considered that you were always, mankind was sinister, because your heart that keeps you alive is on the left side. So you're sinister and you're evil. But JC, Jimmy the Cricket, JC is on the right-hand side, and he's trying to keep you on the straight and narrow path. And so JC, Jimmy the Cricket, becomes Jesus Christ. And that's where it all comes from. Disney wrote about it. I mean, all you got to do is read. But but I'm just saying that when you understand that there was a power behind the Roman Empire, who actually were the brains behind the Roman Empire, and that family, one of the main families, perhaps the main family, maybe not, maybe there's others above them, but one of the most powerful families in the ancient Roman Empire, who Caesar was obliged to listen to, was the Pisos, spelled P-I-C-O-S, Pisos. Arias Copernicus Pisos. The Pisos family were an extremely powerful, devious, brilliant bankers, philosophers, etc. And they were most likely the real people behind the Roman Empire. And when you begin to look at the Roman Empire's history and understand its connection to ancient Greece, and ancient Greece's connection to ancient Egypt, and Egypt's connections to ancient Hindu and India, you begin to see that our modern-day religions of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam came from India through Egypt, and then into the ancient Greek religion, Roman, and then into Britannia, and now comes into America. And that's why our Mississippi River is referred to as the Great Nile in the New World. We are the ancient Egyptians. We are the ancient Romans. We are the ancient totalitarian powers of the world. We are here. And so along our Mississippi, which is the new Nile, are cities that are on the Nile River, like Memphis and all. I can't even remember half the
Cairo. I know.
Cairo.
Yeah.
So all of the famous cities on the Nile are also on the Mississippi, because that's the Great Nile. In the New Egypt, in the New Rome, in the New Empire. And so there was an ancient empire of which Rome ruled, and that was called the Old World. We referred to as Europe as the Old World. And the Romans ruled the Old World, so that was the Old World Order. Well, when the Old World Order was beginning to crumble in the 5th century, along came the Vatican came in and picked up the reins of power, and they continued the Old World power. And something else you need to remember, that for 2,000, I would estimate off the top of my head, 2,300 years, Rome has ruled Europe. If you go back a little over 2,300 years about, Rome, under the Caesars, ruled Europe and most of the Middle East and over Egypt. My God, most of the known world was under the heel of Caesar. So, understanding that Rome dominated Europe for 2,300 years, well, Europe has dominated the world for 2,300 years. The first, for the last 1,600 years, has been under the Roman rule of the Vatican. Before that, it was under Caesar himself. And so today, all roads lead to Rome, because Europe dominates the planet, and America with Europe is an Anglo-American dual world power, so to speak. And it's based on Egypt, Rome, all that ancient stuff. What a hell of a story the world is. What a hell of a story.
Indeed. Hey, Heidi, I believe you have a question for Jordan about passports.
I do. Jordan, it's in the spirit of the United States Corporation, which you mentioned briefly. You mentioned in a recent interview, following your description of how the phrase U.S. citizen means employee of a privately owned company, which was established in 1871, that when you go to the post office to get paperwork for a passport, that there are two papers you can choose from.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask, if you choose the green, you say you can apply to be an American green passport. Can you tell me what the difference between these two passports?
You know what? I can't. I was talking to a lawyer who just mentioned that to me, and I haven't even looked at that paper. But I'm told on there by this attorney that he said, go to the post office to pick it up. If you are just reapplying, if you're going to get a new passport, if you're reapplying, it's one. If you're getting a new one, it's something else. And I was just sitting there listening to him over dinner, and he was telling me that. And so that's why I just passed that along. I haven't even looked at it myself, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it sounded really. I'd like to know what different freedoms or restrictions.
Because there are differences. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to explore it. And I have a question from the chat room, actually, from Sean, astrologer Sean Cohen. She asked what you think about aliens and what's behind all the UFOs flying all over the place. What's behind all of it?
That's a good question, because they are all over the place. You can't even hide them anymore. Thank God people like Adolf Hitler's famous quote, and he said, "Thank God people are stupid." Because people like Hitler can rule because people are stupid. They don't know. And so thank God Americans are generally speaking stupid, so that they will buy anything and believe anything. And we know that. Well, so now the government tells us there's no such a thing as UFOs, all a bunch of bull. When in point of fact, no, aliens are here. They are here. They are alien life forms that are come here from somewhere else. Who knows? They may have always been here from day one. And that's a whole different subject. You need to talk to Michael Cremo and Lloyd Pye. You need to have both of those guys on your show, and that'll blow everybody away. Lloyd Pye is extraordinarily, incredibly interesting man with his work on who created us and how we were created and how our bodies work and the DNA in us and where they come from and all of that. Mm-hmm. So I believe, and I've always believed, that we are somebody else's creation. We are a test tube baby. We humans are a test tube creation. Somebody has created us. And this is what the old rabbi I used to talk to, he brought up. He said, he said to me many years, this was back in the mid-'60s, back in 65, 66, he said to me at one time in a conversation, I'm paraphrasing it, but he said, nowhere in the Bible, in the Old or New Testament, does it say that God created man. I know that Christianity teaches that God created man, but it doesn't say that. That's in the tradition of the church, but it doesn't say that, in fact, in the Bible. It doesn't say God created man at all. What it says, if you just wanted to bother to read it, go back and read Genesis and read it slowly and actually do something you've never done before. Sit down and think about what you're reading. And read it the way, like he said, the Bible says what it means because it means what it says. And it didn't say God created man. So what it says is in the beginning, first of all, I went through this whole thing with him, and it's fascinating as far as I'm concerned. He said, first of all, in Genesis 1:1 is incorrect. It's an incorrect translation. Why? It's because the people who translated the King James Version of the Bible were excellent on the King's English, but they weren't quite that hot on Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic. They were pretty good, about as good as anybody's going to get, but they were still British and English, and they didn't know the customs and the words and the terms and the symbols, which today we do know more about those ancient languages. So we know that there were a lot of mistakes made, typographical errors in the original 5,200. But we know that there was mistakes made because of mistranslating words. Well, you can start with Genesis 1:1. There's a big mistranslation right there in your face. Because in the original text from which the Genesis 1:1 was taken does not say what it says in the English Bible today. In the English Bible, Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But in the original, it doesn't say that, because God in the Hebrew is El, spelled E-L-L, which incidentally was a name for Saturn and for Jupiter at one time. But El in Hebrew is God. But in Genesis 1:1 in the original it says, in the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Well, there's a world of difference between El and Elohim. Elohim is like putting a... I'm getting a feedback. But Elohim simply means plural. So whatever the word is, Elohim is like a plural on the end of the word. So in English we have the word car. You put an S on the end of car, it becomes cars, meaning more than one. Well, that's the same way it is in Hebrew. El is God, Elohim is plural. So the correct translation should be, in the beginning, the gods, more than one, plural. The gods created the heavens and the earth, because that's what Elohim means, God in the plural. Well, then that would make sense, because when God is creating Adam and Eve, it says, and God said, come let us. Us? Who's us? Come let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Not come let us make man. No, come let us make man in our image. after our likeness. Then later on in the Bible, in the 3rd chapter of Genesis, God says, now man has become as one of us. You see what you've done? You created this creature and you gave him some of our DNA. You took the indigenous creatures that were on this earth and you said, come, let us make him in our image, after our likeness. So what are we going to do? Why don't we take one of the females and impregnate her with our DNA just for the hell of it, and let's just see what she gives birth to. I mean, it's just an experiment. Let's just see what she gives birth to. If you put a DNA of an alien into a woman and see what she gives birth to. Well, what she gave birth to was half of her own kind, half of a hominid, animalistic creature, and we call them hominids in science. They are like Neanderthals or the Cro-Magnon man or whatever these creatures were, but they weren't exactly the same after that impregnation. What she gave birth to was something a little different. This time it's half human or half hominid creature and half spiritual creature from another world. God, came from out there and came here and said, after seeing the indigenous creatures that were here for all these millions of years, or thousands of years, somebody came here and rubbed their chin and said, I wonder what these creatures would be like if we crossbred with one of the females. Let's just, for the hell of it, let's just see what would happen. So they crossbred with her, put some of their DNA that came from out there into the hominid creatures that were indigenous to our earth, and leave her alone and see what she gives birth to. Well, she gives birth to something that was not quite like anything that has ever been on the earth. It was different. And maybe because it was an experiment, it's always at least possible that these aliens weren't profoundly well-versed, and maybe they screwed up the first couple of times and created something that they didn't even know what it was. And so they went back to the drawing board and figured it out again, what DNA to put into this creature and what DNA not to put in. So let's do it again and see what we come up with. And then they come up with us. That this is why today we are half animal and half aliens. Because we have the ability, like animals, to be like animals and get drunk and street fights and kill each other and rant and rave about Allah and cut people's heads off and get drunk and the male population is just a bunch of animals. Period.
Hey, Jordan,
yes.
How would that explain the differences in genetic and ethnic diversity? I was going to blood types and RH positive,
I would
negative.
Probably, I would get to that.
Okay.
And so the point being is that the humans today, male, is that macho, cage fighting, wrestling, put you in mind of the old Anunnaki, the Nephilim. I mean, this stuff's really interesting when you get into the ancient history of the world and the giants that were in the world in that day and how they, what they were like and what they did and what the ancient people saw and draw on charts, and they drew on walls what they saw. And there were giants that were enormous human-like creatures that were vicious fighters and murderers. That's why we get the word fellow. We say, yeah, he's a nice fellow, he's a good fellow. Fellow comes from the word fella. Anyone who can knock you down, he caused you to fall. He was a fella. And so, of course, he was a good fella. Yeah, well, the mafia is a good fella. They knock you down, you stay down. So therefore, then they probably made some alterations and came back and did another try and created what they finally wanted. They wanted a perfect creation from her, from the Neanderthal or from the ancient hominid creature, and they finally, over a period of time, playing with the genetics, as a continual, perpetual basis, playing with us little by little by little, and we don't know anything about it because this happened 1,000,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. Who the hell knows? And so we don't know anything about it. All we know is what we are today, and we are the center of all God's creation. We are the most important, wonderful thing that has ever happened in the entire known universe, is us, we humans, who slobber on ourselves, and as babies we mess on ourselves and we cry. And when we grow up, we just sit and watch TV, and we're filthy and we're degenerate and we rape and plunder. But we're the best thing God ever created. And so when you begin to see how we were created, because see, I was in business with Zecharia Sitchin. I sent him to 5 countries. I was privileged to be in his company because I was in business with him. And so we would sit for hours in Las Vegas and up in Portland, Oregon, and in San Diego, and all around. I would meet with him and have long talks with him, spend evening with him. And so I've sat and talked with Zecharia Sitchin for years, and I've talked with Lloyd Pye and all kinds of other phenomenally interesting, brilliant people who have done research into the ancient world, into the ancient humans and who we are and where we've come from, and all of that. And so I've just come back, like I said in the beginning, I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I'm just, what I bring to the table is of any value at all are the people that I know, the experiences I've had with people that I have been privileged to be in their company, to be their friends, to be in business with them, and sit and listen to them. And so I don't have, for a moment, I have no illusions of grandeur that I am important. I know how unimportant I really am. I'm an ordinary man pursuing extraordinary knowledge. I'm just fascinated with the world around me and how much we don't know. My God, there are pyramids. There's a pyramid sitting out on the ocean floor in the Atlantic Ocean. Did you know that? Did you know that there were whole cities, that there were huge temples and cities and temples off the coast of Cuba in the ocean? Did you know that off the coast of Okinawa in Japan that there are enormous temples under the ocean? Are you aware that there were enormous temples and strange things found in the oceans of the world that implied that there were great temples in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? So I'm just saying, how much of the human history of this world and how much of the history of the earth do we really know? Well, let me tell you one thing we do know. We know that as far down as you can go in the earth as man has gone to mine the earth, we've gone down into strata, which is, well, I'm told, reading from the reference books and science books, I'm told that we have been able, humans have been able to go down mining into miles and miles under the earth. And what we're finding in strata that's that far down, many miles down, we're finding strata that all paleontologists and archaeologists and the people in the field of science of dating the earth, all of the authorities agree at that distance down in the earth is at least 3.5 to 4 billion years old with a B. So you're going down into strata of the earth that we know is 3.5 billion years old. And we're bringing up artifacts, handmade artifacts, handmade things, which have writing on them, which have designs. And so that tells me if you've got more than 500 brain cells all going the same way, you have to understand that there's life has been on this earth at least 3.5 billion years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's true, then what was here 100,000 years ago? Or if, and here's the thing that gets me, is that we're still getting a feedback. I'm getting a loud feedback of hearing myself. the thing that interests me is that if the Earth, and I doubt it, but if the Earth could remain pure enough for human life to exist on it, I don't think it can, because we're being sprayed with poison, so we will die quickly, so we don't have to pay Social Security, so we're getting chemtrails sprayed on us, and our food is poisonous. But if we have perfect clean air and water and life would go on and we don't blow it up, what would the human race, because you can see what kind of technology we have developed in the past 50 to 100 years. I mean, 100 years ago, people were riding on horse and buggy. Today, we're walking on the moon. We're talking about 100 years, 150 years, my God. And the Earth has been around for 4.5 billion. And there are artifacts, handmade artifacts from 3.5 billion years ago. Well, look at the history of the world in the past 150 years. Therefore, I would take from that and say, well, I wonder what the human race, as it is now, with all of our little electronic gadgets and telephones, with this incredible technology that's being pumped out by the millions every day in the stores. What is the human race going to be like 5,000 years from today? What are we going to look like? How are we going to be dressed? And what are we going to look like? I know what we look like today. We look like we're killing each other, and we're murdering our own, and we're eating our own. So, but just think about what the world will look like, say, 500 years from today. So that's why I think in relation to history, and I'm still getting this feedback. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, it sounds clear to me.
Yeah, okay. So anyway.
A little bit of it. The chat room is noticing. So it comes and goes.
So anyway, I could go on talking all night and say nothing. I'm just philosophizing, and that's what old men do.
Well,
I just sit here and talk to myself.
Greg, we have a caller with a question. We have a couple in the chat room. Do you want to?
Okay. Well, let me first of all preface that by saying, just because you've got a caller, just because they got a question, does not mean I know the answer. Because I don't. But I'll be happy to entertain it and see where we go with it.
Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Heidi.
Okay. We'll pull up the caller because he's been waiting. Andrew is. Andrew, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah, is Jordan ready?
Yeah, I'm somewhat ready.
Okay, Jordan. First of all, before I answer my question, I just want to say I'm really glad to see on Project Camelot that you reconciled your differences with David Icke, and I was glad to see that you acknowledge that you believe there is a reptilian race. I have no doubt David Icke and Credo Mowa know what they're talking about. And with that being said, and with that being said, Jordan, what would you say if I told you that I have reason to believe that your recently deceased friend Zachariah Sitchin was trying to brainwash and confuse you because, first of all, Leo Zagami, a former 33rd degree Freemason, said in his Project Camelot interview that Zachariah Sitchin was an Illuminati disinformation agent and the Vatican gave him disinformation. And second of all, in David Icke's 1999 documentary Revelations of a Mother Goddess, the Illuminati mind-controlled slave Arizona Wilder said that Zachariah Sitchin was a shape-shift reptoid who had the job of disinforming humanity. And then David Icke said that explains why Sitchin warned me to keep the reptilians out of my work.
Yeah, well, I would answer that by saying I knew Zachariah personally, and I can give you some more stuff just like that I knew about him that I'm not going to tell you. But I knew other things about him. But as a man, to me, he was always very courteous and very kind and very considerate. And so my feeling is, as a creature on the earth, anyone who is decent to me and treats me with respect, I treat them with respect. But I understand that I've always believed that there are reptilians here long before I ever met David Icke. As a matter of fact, I'm probably the one that got David Icke interested in that because I'm the one that brought him here back in 1992. And so we talked about reptilians. I don't know if he knew about them before that, but I talked with him about reptilians, and so he might possibly have gotten it from me to start with. But so I'm on the same page as you. I totally believe that there is a lot of disinformation, and I should be a bit surprised that there are reptilians involved in it because I've heard way too many stories about that from too many good people who know what they're talking about. And so I don't have any problems agreeing with that. There probably are a lot of reptilian aliens spreading all kinds of stuff, and I'm not perfect. I'm just out there in the world meeting all these people, and I take people out there at their face value. I don't try and investigate. I could tell you things about Zecharia Sitchin right now that would be a whole new thing to look at, something totally new that would really catch on fire if people knew. But I'm not about to, because I respect Zechariah, and I think he was a brilliant man. Whether there was reptilian involvement with him, I don't know. Could be. Who knows? I don't know. There could be a lot of reptilian stuff, because I'm totally sure that's true, that there are people who can shape-shift. I've heard too many stories from well-grounded, highly intelligent people who have been deceived and end up in the company of reptilians, and I've just heard too many stories from too many important people not to know that there's something to it. Happily, I've never been confronted by a reptilian as such, but it wouldn't surprise me a bit if I've been in the company of them, and they're very nice and very cordial, and they're very reptilian, and I didn't know it. And so I wouldn't. I'm not. I wouldn't say that. No, there's nothing to it. No, but there very well might be something to what these people have said. I don't know. I've just put myself out there to meet people, because that's who I am. That's what I do. I roam around the world. I'm fascinated with the earth and with the world. And most people would not know anything about reptilians, or even know that they were here, unless somebody like myself and others that are like me are out there talking about it and showing people. I'm the one that was talking about the Illuminati and secret societies and extraterrestrials and demonic possession and all that stuff. I was doing that back in 1959. So I'm well aware that this kind of stuff is going on. But most people didn't even know what I was talking about back in 1967 when I started talking about Illuminati. Now it's everywhere. And so, and I wasn't the first one to come up with that either. I'm just hearing it from others. I started talking about Illuminati and secret societies and demons and poltergeists and other world entities and all that kind of thing. So I've just been fascinated with it. But I am totally sure that I have probably been in the company of reptilians or aliens. There's no doubt in my mind about it. But I try not to judge people. I just find out about it too late, usually, and that's been my modus operandi. I have, in the past, been in close proximity to and in business with people I found out who are actually criminals, who are actually demonic. I didn't know. I mean, I just meet them because I'm putting myself out there to meet everybody, and so, and then you find out, well, the guy you're with right now is a reptile alien. I don't know. So I'm not saying that Zechariah was or was not. I am saying that I know a lot more about Zechariah Sitchin than a lot of people, because I was in business with him. I respect other people's views, but I still can't say for sure, because I don't know for sure. But I do understand what you're saying, and I do agree. Yeah, I probably have been in the company of reptiles and demons and devils, and I think we all have. I think we all have. So,
and the key to beating them is expanding our consciousness.
Yeah, I think so. And also, I would say the key to beating them is talk to the Great Spirit. And the Christians call it praying to God. I don't like using that term, because it's been wore out. It's like the word love. Everybody loves, and nobody knows what love means. But so I don't use the word God too much. But I do believe in God, and I do believe there is a divine spirit in the universe that bends toward justice, as Martin Luther King says. I do believe that there is a spiritual power in the universe that we, all wise men in the world, have always called God. So I believe in God. There's no doubt in my mind that there is a God. There is a divine spiritual entity in the universe that watches over all things. So I try and talk to that one. I just talk audibly to the Spirit when I'm by myself and ask, please guide me, protect me, and show me what I'm supposed to do, and protect me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I could be in the presence of a reptile alien. I don't know. So just protect me and show me what I'm supposed to do, and I want to help my fellow man. And what I've done with my life is purposely I have wanted to help my fellow man awaken from the lethargic sleep that we've been involved with for thousands of years. I want to awaken mankind to go back to God, like I have said so many other times. We need to go back to the old ways. We need to go back and read the scriptures and understand where we've come from and who we are. Get it straight for the first time, because we're in trouble. So I wouldn't confront you at all on those. You may be right. Maybe they were right. I've got a lot of stories I haven't told you.
We have another question from Sean again, the astrologer on the chat room. She asks, what do you think about the soul and about reincarnation?
Well, first of all, I tend to believe reincarnation, and I'll tell you why. I'm not stupid, but I believe in reincarnation because the effect is proven. Now, but this is very interesting, and I want to explain this correctly. The phenomena that we call reincarnation, the ability to die and come back as a different person and come back into life. Well, Jesus reincarnated. The Bible is filled with words in terms of reincarnation. The Bible, both Old and New Testament, but especially the New Testament, is filled with reincarnation. I could give you case after case in the New Testament. There are places where I don't even, or just off the top of my head, people came to Jesus and said, Jesus, if a man comes into this world and he's sick or blind or whatever, is that because of something he did in his prior life before he came here? What are you talking about? Something someone did in their prior life before they came here. Well, that's in the scriptures, it's in the Bible. And then others, there are many, many other places like that. Jesus said to, I think it was Jesus that said that Elijah would come back. No, the prophecy in the Old Testament is that Elijah or Elisha would come back. And Jesus said in the scriptures, it said that John the Baptist was Elijah. When he came back as John the Baptist. And the Bible says, Jesus said to the people, John the Baptist was Elijah, if you can handle that. I mean, if you can deal with that, that's what the situation was. John the Baptist was Elijah. And he went on to say, if you can handle that. You know, a lot of people can't handle the truth. And so Jesus, we're told, died, and then he came back and was walking among the people. And other people didn't recognize him exactly, but his apostles recognized him because of his way of speaking and his mannerisms and everything. They recognized that it was him. He's come back. Well, that is a form of reincarnation. Jesus came back into the world and walked around the world for a while. And so that's reincarnation. So I don't have any problem with believing in reincarnation as a fact. However, having said that, the phenomena is true. We know that people today can and have hundreds, if not thousands, of cases of people who have come into this world and who will tell you of things which happened hundreds of years ago in minute detail, and go on and on and on in minute detail about things which happened. And then when we go back and look into the history, we find out they were right. Exactly what they said happened. And we didn't know it until they told us, and we did research, and now we find out they were right. So therefore, there are only two ways you can understand reincarnation. Either, in fact, we do, when we die, our spirit leaves our body, and we come, and in the spirit place where we are spiritually when we die, we pick another body at the time that a child is born, and we pick another body and come back into it and reincarnate. That's one philosophy, one school of thought. The other one, that of course that would explain how, if I did that, I would know what happened during the First World War. I could tell you in minute detail, and then you check me out and you find out I'm exactly right. Well, how would I have known that in the First World War when I wasn't even around? Well, I was there, and then I came back, and the spirit came back into a different body, and now I can tell you what I saw back then. Well, that's one way of understanding reincarnation, but there's a second one, and that is that maybe there were spirit entities that we call angels or demons or ghosts or poltergeists or whatever these spiritual other dimension creatures are. You know, in Christianity and Judaism, they're called angels or demons. But suppose there were some angels and demons, or whoever they were, they would have also been here right off the bat, and they could have also seen what was going on 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, and so they could be putting that into your mouth. They could be somehow or another inserting or insinuating themselves into our life. And so as you're speaking, you are getting messages in the brain to talk about, and what you're talking about that you saw, you didn't see, but that there are spiritual entities who were there, and that's what they know. And they're right, they're accurate, so it makes it look like you were there. No, someone is speaking through you. Someone is putting those thoughts into your mind, and they're so real that you say, well, here's what I remember. No, you don't remember anything. It is a spirit who's talking to you and putting these thoughts into your mind, and they are correct, but you weren't there. So I'm saying you can boil it down to either you were there in point of fact, or somebody else was there and they're playing tricks on you. But the phenomena that we call reincarnation is provable. We do know for a fact that people can tell what happened 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago, and we go back and check it, and there's way too many instances where they were absolutely correct on everything they said, and nobody knew it until we did some research on it. So the phenomena is true. There is the ability to see the past and tell us about it today. But what does that mean? Does it mean you were there or somebody else was there and they're putting it into your head? So I don't know.
We have another question, Jordan, about these energies from Sherry in the chat room. She wants to know if you know the significance of the owl as in reverse speech and as it refers to reptilians. She says it refers more to the negative aspect, similar to the an energy somewhat related to reptilians and more of a satanic nature, if you have any comments on that.
Well, I know that the owl has been used in ancient history. I mean, going back as far back as you can go, owls were pictured in drawings and things. And I think the basic symbolism of the owl was that it can see in the dark, and it's a very dangerous creature. Owls, they all look very docile, but they're not. They can be very dangerous. Owls can, but the point is that they can see things in the dark, and therefore they are a perfect symbolism for secret societies and for cults and occult orders and people who are very, very bright, who are involved in very secret stuff and know what's going on, but they're not telling the world. You get a taste of that in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, when you find that there's secret societies that have these rituals, and they are politicians and wealthy landowners and wealthy people, but they belong to secret societies, and they are very smart. They know what's going on, and they're deceiving the world. So, yeah, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that's the case, that owls are used as a symbol of the Illuminati, so to speak, generally speaking, because the Illuminati are enlightened ones, and they look at the rest of the world for what we really are. We're in the dark, while they're in the light. And that's what the scripture actually says in the Bible. It says that in the Old Testament, it says that the sons of this system are wiser in a fleshly way than are the sons of light. Simply meaning the demonic, the depraved, the evil men and women of this world who are really, really evil are far, far surpassed your intelligence. They are far smarter than you are. They came in smarter than you. And so they are on the top. They're the cream of the crop. They're the ones that are running the country and running the banks. And they're the cream of the crop. They're running the world. But they are far smarter than you'll ever be. But they are evil. From day one, they are filthy, degenerate, demonic, depraved, and evil. But they're smarter than you are.
In Washington, D.C., where I grew up, there are owls on top of every other building, just sitting there. And I never understood as a kid or young adult why, but you kind of just answered that.
Yeah, I think it's because the owls can see things in the dark, and they represent the guys who are really clever and can see things in the dark that you don't see, because you're in the dark watching basketball while they are in the light, and the dark light, and the black light. They're in the light, all right, but they're in the light to do evil all over the world. So they're very bright people and very evil. Are we a 2-hour show today?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, then that only leaves me for a couple of minutes then, right?
Yeah.
Well, then I'd like to be able to say that I have a radio show called, because my website's been stolen from me. My website is gone. My products are gone. My name has been trademarked in Washington, D.C., so that I cannot use my name. My products are gone. My money is gone. Everything has been taken from me by my one-time so-called webmaster who took everything from me and left me with nothing. But, I just continue to do what I do and see where it goes. I have a podcast, a radio show I do, that's called, very simple, just go on the web to Jordan Maxwell Show. Very simple. Jordan Maxwell Show. And it's got emails there, and I'm doing it's free shows. I'm just doing podcasts and talking about this kind of stuff I'm talking about now on the radio. But I'd like for the whole world to know about it. I'd like for people to know that I'm actually alive yet still, even after I've been ripped off and left for dead. And I'll get my stuff back. God has always given me my work back. I've been ripped off before and lied to and cheated and stolen from, but I always get my work back because I believe that, what you do to me, you've done to the one that sent me. So, but for the moment, I'd like for everyone to know that you go on my website to Jordan Maxwell Show. It's all free. And thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, the Dead Sea Scrolls interview is going to be one heck of a start for that website.
I think so. I think I'm going to put that on there. That should light up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then contact me when you go on Jordan Maxwell Show. If you want to donate to the show, that may be nice. And if you want to download the shows, they're free. I'd like for everybody to download them. I'd like for you to hear what we're doing.
That's wonderful. Jordan, thank you so much for being our guest on In5D Radio, and it would be amazing if we could get you back for a follow-up interview.
Oh, I'd like to. Let's do it.
That would be great.
I'm just an old man muttering and ranting and raving, but I do love talking to young people who want to know. So
I'll tell you what. Thank you. Our demographics have a very young audience, so you're reaching the exact people who you want to reach.
Yeah, because at my age, I'm not in the spin of things with young people, but I love to talk to young people. I don't care about the older people; they're jaded. But I want to talk to young people who have good minds and want to know. I love that.
You've got 110 new fans who are probably a long time, but who now know your new home on the web, and they'll probably see some of them there.
Well, let's do it again, and we'll do a show on. I don't care how many shows we do. On all kinds of occult subjects, on religion and the cults and secret societies and out-of-place artifacts, all kinds of interesting stuff. So go on my website, Jordan
Okay.
Maxwell Show, and download the shows and email me, and let's do it again.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
Okay.
Okay. Take care
We'll
now.
talk
You have
to
a
you
great
later.
night.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Jordan. Yay.
And I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. And I'm not sure if you can hear me. Anyway, our guest will be Santos Bonacci, and we'll be talking about astro-theology, occult history, the Golden Age, and much more. So be sure to check back in on in5d Radio at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and midnight UK. On behalf of my co-host, Heidi Kole, this is Gregg from in5d. Namaste, everyone.